going to be going on to our first question. Question one. What policies, programs, or investments would help build a stronger culture of community, stewardship, and safety among both long-time and new residents? So, Alex, that's I hope you got the mic.
Yeah. So one thing that the Baltimore Chamber of Connection just launched on Thursday is this Baltimore Ambassadors Network. And this is a group of people who love Baltimore, they're kind and they're welcoming, and they want to welcome newcomers. And I'm a little surprised that, something like this doesn't really exist in most cities already. But the purpose is to get all of those people together, one, so that they know each other because they're super connectors and community pillars, and then two, they sign up to be that person for someone who raises their hand and says, I'm new to Baltimore. I don't know anybody. I don't know anything. I want to get to know this city. And that Baltimore ambassador meets them in person, says, welcome to Baltimore. This is what I love about my neighborhood. These are, the things that if you need to take public transit, do that. If you, need to read the local newspaper, this is the one I recommend. And if you have any questions, you can come to me. And if I don't know the answer to those questions, also we have a network of people who know all of the answers to all the questions. And so I think that programs like that to welcome newcomers when they first arrive are things that would be really great to get people to get out and connect with their community and their neighborhoods and those small local businesses and everything, fall in love with Baltimore and stay.
Beautiful. All right, like, um, I mean, it's a long one. It is. Okay, so in my role, being like the person that fills these gaps, like meaning to meet here for people, I'm always looking at new and innovative ways to keep residents engaged, whether it's like my older adult residents or my young residents, like teenagers. And what I've noticed a lot in my work is that there's like this massive gap between older adults and the teenagers. And it's something that I've been trying to understand. I worked with youth for like 10 plus years. And I feel like that is the way to like bring programs and bring people together is when you design a program, kind of like a place is for older adults. For instance, quarantine in East Baltimore Midway. It's catered to the older adults. These are older adults who've been living in this neighborhood their entire life. So it's around 60 plus years. And quarantine has this unique program where they can make days. They will go out, spruce up neighborhood, not spruce up neighborhoods, spruce up green spaces, but they will also kind of like go to their residents who need more support and like upkeep. And I found it to be very interesting because one, you're building relationships, two, loneliness is decreasing, and three, older adults are not trusting teenagers and teenagers are trusting young adults to make careful judgments because sometimes, you know, when people get older, they can become a little cynical. But it's like because that perception has changed so much, and so now seeing this new wave of kids coming through, it's kind of like, well, what do we do with this? Because we've never seen this. Me, I grew up with my grandparents my entire life. I was literally just on the phone with them. And they'll tell you, yeah, my grandson was with me every day. I was drinking coffee at 8 years old. That's not old. It's not. And it didn't stop my growth from 6'2". But but it was like those small intimate moments that really matter when it comes to relationship building. And that's how you design programs. This is how you create stewardship. This is how I've seen program be created in my language. Beautiful.
One of the things that I'm excited about is a program that will be initiated at the Zeta Center in Park Heights, where the older adults they go. I think you have to be 55 for a membership, and it's a nominal fee annually. But they have social activities, they have a sewing class, they have dance classes, they have all types of programming. And one thing that they're planning to implement is a sewing class with elementary students. So the older adults will be teaching the young people. There's a church in Park Heights that partners with one of the elementary schools, and they provide school supplies each year. The community organizations come together and they have an annual back to school drive. So there are intergenerational opportunities, and I think that that is a strong pull. A tangible thing that every community can do is think about being the block captain right? So if you're the block captain, you do a lot of the connecting. You just let people know when it's trash day, right? When you first move in, you're not necessarily aware when it's trash day, when it's recycling day, or what are the nuances of this street. And that's also a way to sort of let people know what's possible in the community. And then a personal project of mine is getting community businesses, community members, adults to back to school. So welcoming, greeting the students on their first day back in school. You have an opportunity to meet the parents or the guardians who are dropping the kids off. You get a sense of what these children are in need of, and then you can connect with the community. Connecting with the schools is something that I've witnessed in one of the schools in our community. They were in danger of closing, and the community rallied, and all of the community members talked about how they would help to ensure that that school did not close, and it did not close because the community came together. And then you have students who saw something, and then I hope that it sparked something in those students so then they can become future leaders as well.
Beautiful, beautiful. Let's give them a hand clap for round one. Yeah, so we got to follow. I just appreciate the fact that y'all talk about the intergeneration because I was also raised, around my grandparents. I didn't drink coffee, so maybe that's why I'm 6'2". But I will say that there is a disconnect. How many of y'all, by raise of hands, will say that there's a disconnect between the older generation and younger generation? So, I'm glad that y'all spoke on that because that's what it means, and they know what it is. So, question number 2. It's also a long one. So, how can communities honor their history, welcome residents, and support local businesses in ways that create belonging and shared ownership of neighborhood success? I heard the so let's hear. Okay, so it's so ironic that I like. Okay, so for this question, I think so much to the program that CDG has, along with I'm drawing a blank here. It's on Fifth Street. What's the St. Ambrose of Central Gospel Partnership in St. Ambrose? It's a program called Safe and Healthy Homes. So it's designed to allow for older adults to age out in their homes, but then they're coming in and providing resources and services that are making sure that they get like HVAC, plumbing, installing rails, those things that are really back at the question actually. It's like honoring people because this Central Gospel Partnership has this thing. It's called it's like these spotlights that they do and like interviews with older adults, and they're having this conversation about like what makes your community unique, like why have you not left, why are you still here, what is causing you to really stay here despite all adversities, any issues, whether it's city, state. It's like, what has caused you to do these things? And it's like, it's very remarkable to hear the historical preservation through their perspective because a lot of times I'm young. I know that that's not kind of studying is like you're there in school, and I've been here for 4 years. But it's like when I look at my grandparents, it's like they built their memories and raise their children, their grandchildren. Me, one of like 20 of them. And it's like you really get a chance to get a glimpse into their lives. I'm like, I've done what I needed to do. I just want to relax. I just want to stay tired. I'm always going to be around, but it's like, this is where I want to be. And I feel like with that program, that's where a lot of people found a connection. That's what a lot of people found where they are rooted at is this is my community. This is where I'm going to stay. If help comes, help comes. If it doesn't, I know what to do. Before you get up into, Janelle or Alex, you said 20 minutes. Okay, so I probably have a lot of kids. Okay. I'm like number 4 out of 11. Oh. So, I've been 4 out of 11 already, 3 out of 12. I've been, I don't know, get this. Okay, so y'all just number 4 out of 11. 6'2", let's go. 6'7". 6'7". Okay, stop.
Intergenerational shows up. There you go. Let's see if I ain't done the intergenerational. Yeah, 6-7. Let's go.
So Park Heights Renaissance is what's considered the community quarterback of Park Heights. It was created in 2007, and the current president came on board in 2020, right before the pandemic. One of the things, she is a daughter of Park Heights, Yolanda Jiggins, and one of the things that she wanted to ensure was that the community was involved every step of the way because she understands, being a daughter of Park Heights, what that means. So from the beginning, she implemented a resurgence of the community and neighborhood associations. Within the footprint that her ex Renaissance, I'll say PHR from here on out for short, within our footprint, there are 12 communities. And that doesn't seem like a large number, and it isn't a large number really when you break down the number of people. But if you know Baltimore, you know Baltimore is based on neighborhoods. Each neighborhood can be very definitive in what they like. And so, in order to ensure that people are connected to their community, one immediate thing I would suggest is if there is not a community or neighborhood association, is that one be developed. The loud talker, I like them the best because you can cultivate that energy to get actions done, right? So within the community organization or neighborhood association, you have your leadership. So when there is a business or an activity in the community that is great, it can be applauded. When there's a community or activity within a community, it can be highlighted. If people don't like it, then there's a resource and there is a vehicle. I encourage, not just because I work in legislative affairs, but I encourage every person to know who their elected officials are. In the state of Maryland, you have 3 delegates and a state senator. If you don't know who your 3 delegates and your state senators are, make sure that you do. They are part of the community. Their role is to represent you in Annapolis, and also their representatives, your council person in City Hall. Being connected to both the city and the state and also the federal legislative entities can help to move policies and things forward. And you can have help from an abundance of sources. The other thing that I was thinking of in terms of connecting communities, I mentioned earlier having a block captain. So let's say you have neighbors who don't necessarily talk to each other, but if there's a block captain, they can be informed about different activities that are happening. The way that you keep people connected is to continuously inform them of what's happening, and you all can share in the wins of the community, and they start to take pride in like, oh, well, okay, this is happening in my community. One of the things that our CEO started with another person was the George Spider Anderson Festival. George Spider Anderson was the first African American jockey to win the Preakness. So each year, preceding the Preakness race, which will be back in Park Heights next year, there is a George Spider Anderson Festival. Bless you. Bless you. Sorry. And recently, when I was canvassing and I told the folks that I was knocking on the door to ask about an organization that wants to rezone to have a certain service, they said, "Oh, you're in Park Heights? Is that the festival?" Yes, we're at the festival. Did you come? Yes, they came. They were excited. And once you connect people to their community and what you're doing, oftentimes you'll be surprised at how much you can get people to engage just by keeping them abreast of all the things that are happening. And if they're silent, don't let that deter you. Continuously and consistently inform them of the wins.
You. What policies are needed to make sure that schools, parks, gardens, public spaces, and other community assets stay active, well maintained, and continue benefiting residents for years to come? I know this was a big discussion point in your groups, and it's going to be a big discussion point up here. Everybody shaking their head. Let's go to those.
Absolutely.
Wonderful listening.
So one of the motivators for me in ensuring that creators in public charters will stay open is that in the last 10 years, there have been four, if not more, school closures in the Park Heights community specifically. One of the arguments that the Board of Education used is there aren't enough students. Well, if there aren't enough students, or the curriculum isn't what it's supposed to be, then we need to focus on improving the curriculum. So a policy that I think should be implemented is that within a school, there needs to be a zone school. Because another thing that I learned, because I don't have children or children in the city of Baltimore specifically, there aren't buses to take children to school. So if you are eliminating schools, that is a longer distance for little people to have to travel. And many of them travel using public transportation, which is baffling to me how that can be okay. So policies to ensure that there are schools within the zone. There also is an opportunity to have uh, a certain number of businesses. So, I'm sorry, a certain type of business within a community. So they're not inundated with the same type of business. I won't identify any specific business, but if you have, I don't know, I'll choose something that I like. Let's say you have 17 Chick-fil-A's, right? Within a 1 mile radius. That's too many, right? A lot of people like Chick-fil-A. We don't need 17. And the same is true for any business. So just limiting the number of businesses, making sure that areas are zoned for specific things. So zoning laws, that's Baltimore City. You have state legislation to ensure okay, one great thing that we've been able to accomplish in Park Heights is that for the proceeds from the racetrack, there will be an investment in the community. That didn't happen before. Something simple. Our CEO was able to secure tickets for community residents to attend Preakness. That didn't happen before. So engaging the community, putting zoning laws in place, and also implementing legislation that directly benefits the community will help to create a sustaining future for the community.
Laura, sorry. Can you tell me apologies how much I love her?
Oh,
I don't know. I'm sorry, girl. This is how much you love her. She's a wonderful woman.
yes, she is.
Yes,
Oof. I attended a conference last year, and the fireside chat, her talking point was what happens when policies link. So, and it was so ironic because at that time it was the height of the new federal government. A lot of things were changing so fast, and a lot of people who have questions still have questions, unanswered questions, confused responses to that. And thank you to your point about school closures. A school in our catchment down at Nichols has been off the chopping block each year for like the last 3 or 4 years for school closure because of under enrollment. But I think what's happening is people aren't really paying attention to what's really going on and how there's a new way of generation is like they not want to have kids right now. And it's so much of well, we'll close this school, we'll close this school. But what happens when like the next 5 to 10 years, you have people moving to like the Barclay neighborhood, Green Mountain West, right? Like any of these neighborhoods and there are no schools. And then you're trying to like go miles outside. Like I've spoken with parents and they were like, I dropped my kid here because my kid loves the teachers. The teachers love my child. I love the environment. I love the programs that they offer. I love how accessible they are. And when we look at the policies of like when it comes to school closures, it's disheartening because it's like we are doing education a disservice because what what works for one school may work with that school only, but it won't work for all other schools. And I think so much of policies and perspective of they kind of look at it as a one size fits all model, which does not always work because sometimes you may have someone like me I wear size 12, but the person next to me might need 11 and a half. So what works for you won't work for the next person. So what won't work for certain families won't work for all. And I think when we think of policies and we think of programs and implementation, we have to think of it from the perspective of what will really work. Like thinking of like a thing about like this person in my toy that work for this person, right? So what are the things that we should work for this person? Coming from like me doing like a whole family, a whole wellness family perspective about I'm always looking at like behavior change and also think about policy. I'm looking at how these things really change the trajectory of families' lives. Like even thinking in neighborhoods, redlining and the white arrow is like you see like the age of living, how it changes. It's like you could be in Mount Washington, 8 years of expectancy to live. You could be in East Baltimore Midway and live 62. You just think to yourself like, why is that? Why is there such a gap? So when I think of this question, it's like I always think of the question, what happens with policies and people, but what also happens to those people that play those policies? Because you're like, they like, if you're a policymaker, your brain understands what are you exactly looking for? Like, what are you hoping to come out? Like, things in the neighborhood, interact with the community. These are the questions I always ask you, which sometimes I get into trouble. But it's like I'm always thinking of those questions and it's always thinking of the next generation.
Beautiful. All right, Alex, take us home. Take us home.
This is a very large scale policy, but I think that we would need to have universal basic income and 4 day work week, not a 20-day work, 28-hour work week, because I think that so in the age of AI that many people are talking about, it is likely that there will be large scale unemployment and high productivity for all these companies that make all this crazy stuff. And I think that for a long time, productivity has been rising, but our wages have stayed stagnant, and so many people, the reasons that they have difficulty with connecting from the U.S. Chamber of Connections State of Connection report, they say that they don't know where to start, they're too tired or too busy, and they don't want to do it alone. And if you have people who are working all this time to make ends meet, and they come home and they don't have any capacity or energy to do any of these things like, take care of their local park or, work on some project for a pool or talk to their neighbor, then you're not going to get it. And so we need to change the way that we structure our society in some ways so that we can do the things that we actually value rather than doing this thing that I don't think is actually giving us that much more value to society. And you think about like in the past, for example, when women joined the workforce, I'm all for women joining the workforce, but there was about $100 billion of volunteering effort a year that because women join the workforce is not happening anymore in communities, and there's nothing that has filled that hole. And so, we either need to resource those sorts of things that were previously done by volunteers, or we need to change the way in which we give people the resources to deal with their own lives. And I run a community guaranteed income club. It's been running for over a year. We have 54 people. Everyone pledges 7% of their post-tax monthly income, and then we redistribute that, and it's redistributed over $25,000 so far. And these are people who
That's dumb. Oh,
these are people who believe in this thing and they want it to exist, but we're not going to wait for our government to do it because it seems like we're not going to get it anytime soon. But there are people who want to support their neighbors, who want to help each other out, who believe that people know best how to spend their money, and then when they have this support, they can go out and do things that we want. They can go be entrepreneurs. They can go make art. They can spend more time with their families. They can be in the community. And, if we were to resource people in that way, they would have more time and less stress to do all these things we care about.
Can I have one?
yeah, go ahead. This is discussion, dog. Y'all do know y'all have to keep looking at me.
Men are very able to volunteer as well. I don't think that. Totally. Men can be some of the best volunteers. You know how I know? Because I'm married to a man and I get him to volunteer to go get the groceries. He ironed this dress. Men can volunteer too, so I'm going to say that again. Men can volunteer as well. But the other point I wanted to make is I want to encourage people to vote. We have gotten in a place where people are apathetic about voting. They entrust other people to handle things. But even if it's something like unify your block, start with a small win, and then you can have a facade conversations, but start small in your community, but get people engaged, whether they're voting on a block captain, a neighborhood association secretary. Just get people engaged in voting because your vote matters.
Beautiful. Alright, everybody did the hand like we're real solid. Let's talk about real solid. That's what we do. Alright. Well, last thing is how you can get in contact with you, your organization, etc., etc. Especially you. Let's just see the late 12 I didn't like that.
We're good archives. Listen. You know, a lot of us any idea. Archives.
No fire, no fire.
Maybe the idea.
Water.
Yes.
Yeah. I'm being a kid. Sorry. So you can contact me. Our website is centralbaltimorepartnership.org. I am on the website, or if you guys would like meet me once this is all said and done, I'm also open to that as well.
I am Bold New Heights. That is our website address, boldnewheights.org. My email address is janellejm@phrmd.org, JANELJM@phrmd.org.
And you can find my page at chamberofconnection.org/Baltimore. And you can email me at alex@chamberofconnection.org. And I'm also happy to chat after this and in general, just, be friends.
Yeah, man, clap one more time and all go. Those gonna be a lot of people that